In this video, I'm going to show you the trick to replacing the throttle body connector on your Saab 9.3 Aero. Now, there's probably not a lot of people out here that this applies to. However, something that I realized that a while ago that this connector was broken. Now it all makes sense. I pulled off the upper plenum or the intake. The intake gaskets were previously replaced, and when they did that, well, they broke this connector. So it's kind of one of those things that fortunately I was able to get at the junkyard. I depinned the one I got from the junkyard. Now we're going to do the same thing to this one, and well, we're going to repin it. So I'm going to take you friends along for the journey. To start, we need to get out this pinkish purple deal, and they make it kind of simple for you. We'll go ahead and lift up on that, and we'll try to remove this. Be careful, you don't want to put too much pressure on this. You will definitely send this thing into orbit and you'll lose it forever. Next up, pick up yourself, if you don't have this already, a depinning electrical connector kit. I'll link it in the description. But what you need to do is, you see the main pins right here, there's 6 of them right above there, and it's very faintly numbered, and you probably won't pick it up on the camera, but what we need to do is, the main pins right here, we need to stick one of these pins into one of the small guys and shove it in here, and you'll kind of hear some form of a click, and then we can kind of wiggle the connector out. And it's going to be somewhat of a balancing act because all of this stuff is pretty tight in here. So I think what I'm going to do actually is cut this and cut this zip tie to kind of give us some more slack. I'm going to go one at a time. We're not going to overwhelm ourselves here. Before you start, make sure you take a couple photos, and that way, if you get too lost, well, you can refer back to your photos, but it's best to just do one at a time. Now, as I'm doing this, there's a couple small pins on each end of here. I'm just taking a small eyeglass flat blade screwdriver, kind of bending them out just a smidge. That way when it goes into this connector, it locks back in exactly how it should. And it may not pick up on the camera. There's a pin right there that sticks up, or I should say a flap, and there's a flap right here. And it's pretty apparent the orientation of this, it's rectangular. So you want it to match up. See how it's wider left to right than it is top to bottom? So you want this pin to match that. So the flap should go up and down. Once you get it into place, definitely give it a little bit of a tug so it doesn't willingly fall out too easily. And once you're happy with that, move on to the next one. Here is a great example of what I was just explaining. I was transferring the old electrical pin into the new connector. I thought I had it seated properly, but unfortunately that was not the case. I gave it a little bit of a tug, it popped right out. Well, that is no big deal. Either use a small flat blade screwdriver or something like your nail in this case, and on either side of this metal pin is 2 little flaps. Bend those upwards and then go ahead and reinsert that electrical pin back into the new connector. And give it another tug. If everything seems good to go, then you're ready to move on to transferring the next pin. It's the old broken one, and the reason I'm totally replacing this one. Here's that pin, and you'll know when these things are seated properly because you can actually see the copper kind of towards the end of this plastic, because you have to think this clips onto an electrical connector, so obviously you need these pins to contact whatever it's going into. So make sure they're as far forward as possible. These look in perfect shape now that this is all transferred over. Again, this is the old one, and the reason why we are replacing this is because this whole thing is busted off. So lastly, we need to reconnect this plastic guy in here, and that's what really locks all of these tabs into place. So really this only goes one way. I mean, it should be relatively apparent. See how this is a U shape? This is the exact same U shape, and then one end is open, the other end is closed off. So the closed off portion will go towards the end, and then literally just push it into place. Take our eyeglass screwdriver and just push it in the rest of the way. That's it. So all these electrical pins we just transferred into here are now fully locked into place. Give this a nice good tug. I'll go ahead and put on this wire sheathing and wrap it in some good friction tape. I mean, you can use just typical electrical vinyl tape, but I like to use the friction tape because it looks a little more OEM, and then we can call this project done. And if you're asking yourself, what exactly is friction tape? Well, most stores have regular vinyl electrical tape, but what the original equipment manufacturers tend to use at the factory is what's called friction tape. So in my case, if you go to any store, they typically will give you this if you ask for electrical tape. But if you tell them friction tape, if you go to the right place, they'll know exactly what you're talking about. Basically, it's just the fancy version of this. So there you go. A repair that you may never find useful, but it's something to where you can really apply this technique to just about any electrical connector in your engine bay, or heck, even in your car. So if you run into a connector like this that is broken and you're fortunate enough to find a replacement from the factory, online used, or heck, like myself, fortunate enough to have a pick and pull close by to where you can pull that part from, depin the original connector and replace it with something better, well, this video should be helpful for you. So if this is helpful, be sure to give the video a thumbs up. Definitely consider subscribing. I have a ton of how-to automotive awesomeness out there. That being said, I appreciate you watching. I'll catch your friends next time.